This is an interview with Mark Haughton.
Are you listening?
So this is a podcast interview with Mark Haughton. He is very much into the power of the subconscious mind, manifestation, metaphysics, quantum mechanics, spirituality, and he has actually won multiple lottery prizes. He's also the author of How to Win the Lottery Using Quantum Physics. It's a very, very fascinating conversation. If you're new to this podcast, my name is Timothy Schultz. I am the host of Lottery, Dreams, and Fortune. This is actually the second interview with Mark Haughton. I will put a link to the first one below. Now you're going to want to listen to the end of the interview where he reveals his advice on how best to win the lottery. It's a very interesting conversation. I'm so excited to share it with you. Without further ado, let's get to it now. Here is my podcast interview with Mark Haughton. So I'm here with multiple-time lottery winner Mark Haughton. Once again, Mark Haughton, how are you doing today?
Great, Timothy. How are you doing today?
Good. Thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time. I know you are super busy, so I really, really appreciate it. Thanks for returning to the show. This is actually your second time on this podcast, Lottery, Dreams, and Fortune. I'll put a link to the first appearance below. But how would you explain to someone that is not familiar, what exactly do you do?
You ready to get deep? Ready to get your mind blown?
Let's dive in there.
Well, I mean, this should be familiar to you because you won in a method unique to the mind and dreams and visions. But I mean, basically, what I do, I help people to find their true passion and power hidden within the mind. I'm spreading an awareness to show people that mind creates matter. Matter is what we call physical reality. And just to make it a broader perspective or aspect of this stuff, there isn't really a reality. There's just a perception. So I basically help people to unmask the mask that were put on them since we were growing up about limiting beliefs and how the world works, how their mind works, in particular, how to create what you want deliberately.
And what you're doing, you have a YouTube channel here. So we will put a link to that as well as a podcast and a book, How to Win the Lottery Using Quantum Physics, which looks very intriguing. And we will get to that below and put links to all these things below. But you have won various prizes in the lottery before. And as of the last time we spoke, one of your largest wins was $107,000.
Right.
What types of games have you won?
Yeah, so I've won the state draw game here in Florida. It's called the Fantasy 5. That was my first big win. That one I visualized, I manifested that to buy a car I wanted. Was a very rare Dakar yellow M3. And then I did scratch offs. Biggest on a scratch off was 100,000, but I won other prizes like 10,000, 20,000 pretty consistently. Then I went to the pick four. So if you're a lottery player, you know about the pick fours, the pick five games. That's where I did most of my damage, so to speak. Was it 107,000 that I won? I've won more than that. I've won a pretty nice one. I think it was almost 300 grand. So basically what I did, I see these numbers and I put them into play four, and I would visualize these numbers, and over a certain amount of time, they will come out exactly the way I visualized them. I basically put some money down, and then that's how I won. So I've won pretty much across the board. But most of my wins now are with like creating these numbers from play four, play five, seeing them, visualizing them, and playing them, and then winning. So that's what I do.
So Mark, I'm so glad that you were able to come back onto this show. Yeah. I heard that you won just recently. You won another lottery prize. What was that all about?
Yeah. So it was $10,000. So basically, to show you guys the power of what I talked about, I said the power of your intention and your words. So I think I was doing a live, and someone was asking me a question. They were saying, "All right, man, how do we manifest what we want? How do we manifest like money or lottery?" And I just said to them, I said, "All right, I'm going to show you how we're going to do it." I said, "Okay, I'm going to manifest $10,000 in abundance in money, and I'm open to the way it's going to come out." And then I laughed in the live, and I said, "Well, knowing me, it's probably going to be through the lottery." But I didn't really care about the lottery. I'm just open. And then I let it go. And here's the thing. I totally forgot about it. Then I had the winning ticket almost a month in my car, as I said. But when I post a ticket, I went to check my tickets, and voila, it was a free ticket, 10 grand from a free ticket. I didn't realize it until someone commented and said, hey, man, is this the $10,000 you said you were going to manifest? And I was like, whoa, it actually is. But the biggest lesson from this, guys, is I had totally forgotten about it. I had to let it go. I detached from it. That's the secret to doing anything, to winning the lottery and all that. You have to let it go as if it already happened. And that's exactly what I did. So see how powerful your words are? You can declare something, and I expected it. And I was so sure that I was going to get 10 grand from somewhere that I totally forgot about it. But of course, it had to be the lottery, because I guess that's what I'm entangled with.
Wow. Well, congratulations.
So it's motivation for you guys. You can go do it too.
So how do you visualize these numbers? I mean, how do they just come to you, and I mean, how does that happen?
Okay, well, so here, what I believe, and this is what's been working for me and for people that I've been teaching and showing. So I believe that we live in it's like a blank slate. There is actually no reality. It's like, I like to use the analogy of a canvas, a painter's canvas. The canvas is blank, and then what the painter puts on the canvas becomes their world. That's how it works in reality with us. With quantum physics, I studied how mind creates matter, what we are energetically. I studied the neuroscience of the mind and the brain. And basically what I discovered is that our lives are stories. So basically what I tell myself, or what I believe, becomes my reality. So once you start to do something over and over, you become entangled with it. It becomes a part of your life. For example, with the lottery. So what the universe does now, once something gets entangled or gets impressed into the subconscious, it will always show you ways to win more, to get more. So you'll see numbers will constantly be bombarding you. And so these numbers, they practically come to me. And what happens is there's so many numbers come to me. I can't play all of the numbers. So what I do is I listen for what's called inspired action. I'll give an example of what that is. But one particular day I was driving, and this number popped up on a truck. This truck I was behind it. The number was, I think it was 0405, that number. And the inspired action kicked in. And I played that number, and I won a nice amount of money. So it's kind of like that. It's kind of like the universe will show it to me. Or there's times when I just kind of visualize, or I'm open and I'm looking, and then the numbers will come to me, and then I play them like that. There's even times I just choose numbers. I deliberately say, hey, this is the number I like. And the numbers I usually pick are what we call, if you know numerology and the science of how numbers work, they carry different vibrations. So high numbers like 44, 77, 88. So I'd play those numbers in the doubles. And if you're familiar with the lottery and the doubles, you know that if you play double numbers in the pick 4 to pick 5, the more double numbers you play, the more higher the money you can win. And it's easier, you don't have to play straight. You can do the combo, which guarantees you to get all sets and guarantees you 5,000. That's how it works. I think that's how the universe works. I think everything comes to us based on a story we program in our subconscious. And that goes to show me further proof that there is actually no reality. It's just my perception, just like your perception. What you believe is a blueprint within the mind that protrudes out into your reality.
For people that are watching this that are skeptical about this type of thing, what is science saying about this, and what do you say to people that just don't believe in this type of thing?
I would encourage anyone to study how the nature of reality works first, to kind of get a glimpse of what your world is actually made of. And I think what will help people is we've been conditioned and taught that the world is a solid thing, right? So in our minds, we have this solidity which creates this thing that we can't control a lot of our world. Everything is like pre-done, it's solid. You can't influence solid stuff, right? But if you peer into the world of quantum physics, and then you can see that there is no such thing as solid material world. It's more of a transparent energy source. And it's just really how our brain takes information, constructs it, puts it out, and we see our world. So I think that will kind of give them a nudge to kind of say, well, okay, let me go further than that. And if you want further proof, if you don't believe it, well, look at an example like you, man. You dreamt the numbers and they came through. Look at an example like me. It was a 2016-17 when I won the Fantasy 5. I visualized the exact way that I would win was the exact way it came into my physical reality. So things like that you have to look at, and then you can look at other individuals with Cynthia Stafford, the other guy there, Shane Misler. So, these aren't coincidences. There's an actual science to create your world by design, though. You see, you create your world two ways: design, default. Default is a program that runs in the background. Then I would say, look, study how your mind works, especially your subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind controls your actions and habits. And your thoughts, they are energetic vibration. They work in things like that. So for someone who doesn't truly believe in, go do the groundwork first, the science, the aspect of how mind works, your body affects. For example, we've heard of the placebo effect, right? That's an actual scientific term that we don't truly know exactly how the process works, but we just know that whatever the mind believes, the body will heal itself. The body accepts it. So that should kind of give you a peer into, okay, there's something more to this. Let me go on and study more. But I would start with that.
That's very fascinating. And you did mention the higher self in the previous interview, of connecting with this source of energy that we're all connected to.
Yep. Now that's that's the big one right there. What the higher self is. Every single person have a spiritual part of them. Spiritual part means a non-physical part. And it's not in this dimension. So we live in three spaces, or fourth dimension. Time is considered fourth. So we have a three dimension, right? Human beings. We have up, down, left, right, etc. But the higher self is basically you in a non-physical form that's protruding your physical form here, and it guides you through your dreams, through your intuition, and through feelings. That's what people will call God, source energy. But there is truly something that's connected to you that can guide you to get everything you want. Now, why is that? Because here's what I believe as well. I believe that when we came here, everything was mapped out before we got here. Because we as energy, right, our bodies are what we call physical stuff, right? Our body's going to die, we're going to decay. But the energetic part of us, our consciousness, your awareness, that can't die. That would defy the first law of thermodynamics. Energy, you can't create energy. You only can transform it. You see, the universe never had a beginning or an end. It was always here. So that's who you are. That's the higher self. So what happens is, a lot of people are blind to this. They don't know that they're connected to this because they have been distracted by so much stuff growing up. They have like negativity, they got the ego, and they got all type of stuff. But some of us hear it. When you have intuition, you feel something, you dream something, that's called the higher self talking to you. I mean, you had an aspect of that when you had your dream. That was real trippy to you. That's an example of your higher self communicating to you. And there's a way that you can actually connect just to retrieve the information, and you can use that to help you. And that's what I've been using in all these years to win, to do whatever I want, to help people. I've been channeling or using that higher self. People call it a superconscious state of mind, but it's there. And we know it's there because we know how information works. It's information. Information exists in a field. It's like they call it the quantum field. This field of information that we pull down and is downloaded through our subconscious, and then we perceive it through our conscious.
How do you pull it down? How do you download it? How do you get in touch with the higher self?
Right. Good question. So the thing is, you never have to download information. Information's already downloaded to you. You just have to retrieve the information from the higher self. So the question is, how do I retrieve it? So when you want to retrieve information from your higher self, here's what all you have to do. I made a video on this, but I'll put it here. There's two things you have to do. Get at least 6.5 to 8 hours of sleep. Make sure your last meal is 3 to 4 hours before you go to bed. You do that, the information that's downloaded in you now can be retrieved and you can process it. And here's why. The brain needs the ample energy to retrieve information. When you get less than 6, and studies show this, less than 6.5 hours of sleep creates brain fog. You lose brain cells. you're depleted, your cells polarity, you're just not at high efficiency. Once you can get at least 6.5 to 8 hours of sleep, you have more ample time now. There's more chemical systems going on, oxytocin, serotonin, DMT now. Now you can put out this. And by the way, when you think a thought, it's an electromagnetic energy. It pulses out actually into the universe. You just can't see it. It's like Wi-Fi. You can't see it, but it goes out. That information now will get down into your subconscious and you retrieve it. So that's pretty much all you have to do to retrieve it. The first step to connect with your higher self is to know that there is a higher self, and then you can actually start to talk to your higher self. That's another way you can get connection. And you speak to your higher self, not in a way of asking, but in a way of like a conviction, like a knowing, or I like to use questions when I talk to my higher self. I say, for example, like, what would it look like to have this? How would it make me feel to have that? Hey, you know, the thing that I want, I desire right there, find the easiest and effortless way to make this happen. I speak out loud. That goes out, and then I let it go. And then before you know it, voila, something will pop in my head. I'll get an idea. You know, it will come up in a very unique way. It can even come from other people. Other people will call me out of the blue. Hey, man, da, da, da. It was all your higher self at work. Because all of us, if you don't notice, guys, I want to say something. There's nothing separate here. Every single person is connected on two levels. They call it the collective consciousness and then the collective subconscious. That's where all our thoughts come from. So all these thoughts we have in our head, some of them not even ours. They're just from other things going on around.
That's very interesting. So I know that you experience things in synchronicities and you see certain numbers and you receive signs that are answers to when you're asking questions. And it seems similar to when people pray and that sort of thing. Some people equate that to God. What would you say that this other world actually is?
Okay, that's a great question. So what this other world actually is, it's basically information. Information of everything that you and I want or desire. It exists as a probability of existence. Quantum term that is called the wave, and then it goes into a superposition. A waveform, it means that you and I exist in all possible outcomes. When we make a decision or put our attention to something, it becomes a superposition. Now those all possible realities now become a possible actual reality. And then now we focus more on it, we collapse the wave from the superposition to an actual reality. And that's how that world works. That world is just a world that has all the information, all the best versions of what you want, but it's there in a raw form. It's an energetic form. Only when we focus on it, we think about it, we visualize it, we affect that field. Then it gets transferred over into our 3D world. But the interesting thing about that world, it's actually connected to us. The reason we can't see that world is because the way our brains evolved with our 5 senses. Did you know that we can only see 1% of true reality? 99 or 98% of reality is hidden from us.
How is it hidden?
So when we process information and when we see stuff like it's called a light. Light is called a photon. So we have what we call the electromagnetic spectrum. So we have different wavelengths of light. There's infrared, there's gamma ray, there's radio waves, radiation waves. There's all these different variations of light, right? So we can only see in the visible light spectrum as human beings. And that's a tiny percent. So that's why if you go to a doctor, they can use an x-ray, they can see through you. That's a form of light. And then there's other forms of light. So that means we're only seeing a slither of actual reality. So that's what it means when we only see 1%. Now imagine all the other information that's hidden or not unavailable. Not only light now, also, guess what? Sound. We only can hear 1%. Same thing with the sound wave thing. So that's what it means in reality. I'll give you an example. Like, you know that new telescope they just launched? I think the James Webb telescope there. The reason they can see all those images is because they use a different wavelength of light. It was hidden to our eyes, but this telescope can use that light, and voila, you see a whole bunch of new stuff that was in there before. So what I'm actually saying to you right now, look, there are things happening right around us right now. that we cannot detect because of our senses. Maybe walking through us, going through all of us right now, but our body's just not equipped to process and sense those type of information. That's the hidden world. That's the world I'm talking about. That's the world you can tap in to get all this stuff from.
That's very interesting. And with that telescope that you mentioned, I mean, that's extraordinary. These galaxies and all this stuff that we couldn't see before, and we're still not seeing all of it. I mean, they just don't know. There's so much more that they don't know than they do know. But it's really interesting how, well, in space, you know, space isn't really empty, that there are, there's energy and particles within so-called empty space. Doesn't that mean that we're all connected? What's your opinion on that?
That's excellent. And that's why I remember I noticed I said to you, I said, you become entangled with whatever you constantly think about and surround yourself. So yes, within that space you're talking about, it's called the 0-point energy field. Just to give an example, Tesla knew about this space because he wanted to create electricity where he didn't have wires, but they said they couldn't meter it, so they cut it down. They wanted to make money. But let me show you something. Within that tiny space around you, if you take a tiny slither of this much space, right? The energy from this much space, you can power the earth for up to 1 year if you could harness that energy within that space. Now, the entanglement part of it is this. No one is separate. That's why I say, you know, you already have what you want. You already entangled. If you want to win the lottery, you want to manifest the lottery, it's already yours. You just have to accept and know that you're entangled with it. And that's the problem people face. People don't, they tend to believe in like the odds, and they tend to believe and they tend to watch other people and say, oh, it's not going to happen. And you take yourself out of the creative mode. You take yourself out of your unique reality. But yeah, entanglement, it's like this. When the Big Bang, which is a part of our universe, expanded, it was hot plasma, and then when the plasma cooled, that's when the particles started to form, like protons, electrons. When they start to form, they all became entangled. Now remember, you and I are from those particles. Everything you see, the stars, originate from that single point. They call it the singularity. So that means you can't be separate from anything. That's your beginning. You became from that thing. So from the instance it began, everything was entangled. So now as we're human beings, you're still not separate from your goals and your dreams. It's the illusion that you're separate, which is caused by your smart mind. That's called the conscious mind, the ego. It's very logical because it can think and it can reason. And remember, your ego now, the issue with your ego is it can only see 1%. So it doesn't have the ability to see beyond. So it's going to give you a lot of judgments. It's going to focus on what your current reality is. And that's the problem we face, is that we don't believe that we are a part of what we want. And that's just a problem with our minds deceiving us of what's truly possible.
So how do you lose the ego?
Okay, well, the thing is, you can't lose the ego. So what you want to do is you want to recondition the ego. And the way to recondition your ego is you have to, number one, give your ego evidence of what you want or the possibility of what you want. That will start to condition your ego. Second thing is you have to speak out aloud to your ego, not in your head. You have to talk to your ego in a way to say like, hey, relax. Everything's going to be okay. Hey, this is how it works. Hey, this is what we want. Hey, no negative thoughts, positive thoughts. Hey, treat it like a child, so to speak. Then your ego will calm down. Now, the evidence part of the ego is very big because that's going to help you. Let's say, for example, you want to win the lottery. The first thing your ego is going to say to you is, you know the odds, man. You're going to da-da-da-da-da. But then you say, okay, I want to win the lottery using my mind, like quantum physics, or I want to win it with visualization. It's going to say, well, how are you going to do that? So what do? Now? You give it evidence. You go to someone like your channel, like Timothy. You go to someone like my channel, like Mark. You go to someone like Cynthia. You go to someone like Shane. You go to people who have won the lottery doing the very thing. Now what the mind will say now, oh, this is possible. It's not going to tell you it's totally believable, but you don't want that right now. You just want the possibility, because the possibility now is going to get your ego to release resistance. When it releases the resistance, you have more time to build the belief now to get it to your subconscious, which will make you win. So that's the power of working with your ego. That's how you're going to get your ego to buy in.
What do you tell someone that is practicing these techniques that hasn't won yet, and they might be feeling a little down?
Okay.
You know?
Yeah. Well, if you're practicing these techniques and you're doing it the right way, you're going to win. So that's what you have to remember, that if you're doing it the right way, you're going. And the next thing I would let people understand, like, guys, look, the 5 years, the 1 year, the 2 year, it doesn't exist. Time doesn't exist at all anyway. It's all a illusion. Our timeline is seen as linear time, but in reality, there's this one big moment of now. It's just spread in different directions called coordinates. So the only time you're going to lose, here's the key, guys. If you're manifesting a lottery and you want to play to win, the only time you're going to lose is if you stop playing, or if you check out, you're gone. That's the only time you're going to lose. If you're still playing and using these techniques, one day you must win. Everything's going to happen for you in divine timing, guys. Your higher self is going to pick the time. Just like when I won, it was in divine timing. I wanted to win so fast. It took me about, from the first manifestation, it took about 12, 13 months before I won. And during that time, I wanted to be done like the next 2 months, the next 3 months, the next 4 months. But that's when I learned and realized that, oh man, I'm not totally in control here. There's this other part of me that determines when I'm going to win. And when I won, it was the perfect time for me. I wanted to win at a certain time because the car was always up for auction. You know, people are always going to buy the car. But something kept happening with the car, as I said before. The car kept coming back to me. Like, one person would buy the car, they pay the money, and something would go with the bank, didn't take it. One other person would buy it across in California. He tried to come to Florida to get it. Guess what? The catalytic converter wasn't on it because in Florida, we don't do smog, so he couldn't take the car back to California because they do smog testing. All little stuff like that. So my point is, what's for you is always going to be for you. If you have a dream and you decide you want it, if it's the lottery, if it's anything else, if you stick to it, it's already for you. The timing is not up to you, though. The timing is up to your higher self. You're going to win at the perfect time. When we get into the time thing, is our ego, because see, the thing with the ego now, the ego believes it has a short time. That's why it's on you. It's like, oh, we're going to get old. I went through all that stuff, man. When I was playing, it's like, oh, Mark, by the time you win, you're going to be old, but it's going to take this long. Da, 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 da. You know, it's odds. People try. But see, I didn't buy into any of that because I knew how reality worked. I knew quantum physics. I had two realities I could go to. I could go to the reality of probability and chance, or I could go to a reality where I actually deliberately create this stuff. And that's where I went. But my ego still messed with me. And look, I proved it wrong. I knew my ego was your ego is a liar, guys. Your mind's a liar. Whatever it's telling you, it's lying to you. It's never. My mind told me the same thing. By the time you win, it's going to be gone. And guess what? None of that happened. I won at the perfect time. You'll win at the perfect time. So that's my message for you if you're playing. If you're following the techniques and the system of how to do this. Now, if you're someone out there like buying random tickets and you don't know what you're doing, then you have to readjust your mind and get into this. And that's how you can win.
It's really interesting. Yeah. People that have had dreams about it, some people have won literally the next day, and other people it's decades later. They keep playing, or the same numbers.
Right.
So time seems to not really matter as much.
I'm glad you brought that point up, and that's why it goes to show you that it's not up to us to determine. It's up to that individual's higher self. Some people can win in a day. That's because of their version of their higher self. That's them. They chose that. Some people can win a decade. They chose that. See, our ego is the one that chooses that. Our ego is the one that tries to tell us that. Yeah, guys, with the lottery, guys, you got to remember, you have to budget yourself. If you're trying to win, you're not going to win. You're creating lack. If you allow yourself to win, you are going to win. It takes one ticket to win, man. Go within your budget. You don't have to spend 50, all that. It takes one ticket because you're deliberately creating this stuff. But if you're trying and pushing a lot, you're going to push it away. You know, the way the universe works is if you feel you are abundant, you will get more abundant. If you feel you're in lack, you're going to get more lack. One of my methods with the lottery is when I buy tickets, I don't check my tickets immediately. Sometimes my tickets stay in my lottery chest there for like a month because I'm already expected it and I knew I won. So that create more abundance. So my subconscious mind now says, I've already won. But if I'm a person like needy, I'm checking every day, oh, I lost. Then I'm going to get down and depressed. What am I doing? I'm creating more lack. So you have to know the laws of the universe, how energy works to create. And that's an important part when you're going to play to win the lottery. You have to expect and accept that you already won. And I'll prove it to you. I'll show you something. I was actually looking at something over the last 7 years. I've looked at some of the big jackpot winners, like big games, like hundreds of millions. I noticed that majority of people that won the lottery, big ones, are people that already have money. It's not like they needed the money. Most of these people are already abundant. There was a doctor, there was a lawyer that won. In other words, these people are in a state that they're just playing the lottery for fun. And that says something about the vibration you put out. And that's the key point you want to do. Play for fun. Don't play for need. You'll win a lot faster that way.
I completely agree that playing for fun is definitely healthy, and that's important. Quite a few people have won following your system, what you teach, which is really interesting. I interviewed Tammy Van Winkle on here, who won $1 million from Powerball. Yeah. And so that's one story. I'll put a link to that interview below. But do you have any stories of other people that have won using your methods that you can share today?
Yes. I have a couple stories here. So I had one person that kept visualizing, right? And in the dream, it told them the particular store they were supposed to go to and play. And they went into that store and they played the tickets, I think, for like 3 or 4 months. And they won $2.2 million. And I had another person there. They asked their higher self to buy the higher self. It was a scratch off. And they were led to a $500,000 winning scratch off. It showed them the exact store. As a matter of fact, he drew out a map for me. It was a bridge and it was in a plaza. It was so trippy. He drew it out for me, and he went there and he bought the ticket at, I think, 3 months, the same ticket, and he won $500,000.
Was he tapping into
his higher self?
Yeah.
Well, basically, when I teach people, I teach them how to just first learn their mind and their body and how the body talks and communicates. And then by just what I just said, showing them how to speak to the higher self, visualizing it a little bit and being open. And then usually what happens, it goes in steps. First thing when you're tapping in is you'll notice like the synchronicities. So that's when you know that, okay, I'm connected. Okay, something's happened here. Then it'll move from synchronicities to what we call mirroring. Mirroring now is where you'll see like maybe other people winning. You hear talking about what you want. Then it moves to the next step now where you get the visions, you get the dreams, and you'll see the ticket or something will come into that point. So that's the step it went for him. And then when he seen the ticket, he knew it and he played it for 3 months and voila, he won. It shows you, right? There's this other world out there that gets pushed down. People don't talk about this. People think it's like a bunch of hogwash, or they think it's like a conspiracy or whatever, but there is hard science showing now, and neuroscience and physics, that we live in a multiversal universe.
If you take a watch up to outer space above the Earth, the further you get away and the gravity changes, time changes, right? So it's, I think, slower down here than it is up there. I don't know. I might be messing that up, but I know it's different. It varies. Mm-hmm. I mean, what, in your opinion, what is time?
Well, that's so what you're referring to is called time dilation. So gravity is gravity pulls things towards us, right? So let's say like the black hole. There's a black hole at the middle of our galaxy. I think it's called Sagittarius A or something, but it's a huge black hole, and not even light can escape it. But if you go to that black hole, there's called the event horizon of the black hole. If you go in your spaceship and you just chill and go around the black hole, time stops. So let's say you leave the Earth, right? And you spend a year in Earth time around the Sagittarius black hole chilling. When you come back to Earth, 2 years, the Earth will already age about 80 years, 80 to 100 years. So when you come back to the Earth, you'll only age 2 years Everyone else is 100 years. Most people are dead and gone, that you know already. So that's what. So time exists as relativity. So time exists in coordinates, but it's this big moment of now. See, so it's like different coordinates, different pockets of time. So when we talk about time, like people say, oh, it's 1 year, it's 2 years, 3 years. All that is relative. It's actually made up. It doesn't actually exist. We make that up. That's not in our time.
So,
Me and you, we are both alive and dead already, because there's different dimensions of our universe. So think about that. Our birth and our death, simultaneous right now.
so is everything predestined?
Yes, overall. So that's the thing now. That's the big thing I discovered. We do have what we call a semblance of free will, or what we call a version of free will. But your heart's desire, your purpose and path, whatever it is, you're already predestined, guys. That's something that you can't get away from. So how do I know what my destiny is, or whatever I'm predestined for? It will be called in your heart's desire, like your goals, your dreams. Let's say if you have something that you can't get out of your heart or mind, like you want to be a good real estate investor, it'll be something that's tied to you that you just can't get out. That's a sign of your destiny. That means that you chose that way before you got here. So that's already destined. Now, where the free will comes in now is that you have different channels that you can take to reach that goal. You can do stuff along the way. For example, you could go become a real estate investor, and then you could go win your lottery. Then you can leave from that, and you could become an influencer or a teacher. But everything will be brought back to your overall purpose. So that's how it works.
That's really interesting. So if we are both alive and dead at the same time, what does that mean, and how is that possible?
I know, right?
Because I think that I'm alive, but
right.
What do you mean?
That's a great. So let me show you how it works, guys. So I know this is trippy. It's like, what this guy talking about? All right, a trusty napkin is gonna make everything seem right for you guys. Okay, so here's a napkin. So let's look at this surface. This is what we call our reality, right? So we're on this surface right here. Above our reality is what we call the other dimension. Now, when we can look down, we see the entire timeline of the universe right here. Here's the entire timeline of the universe, looking down. Past, over here, present, here, future, over there. But they're all in what? The same time. There's different coordinates. So look, over here is your birth. Over here is your death. This is where you're at right now. You can't see the whole timeline because we're limited in our perception. Our brain can only perceive a little. So that's why I said you're both alive and you're already dead. You're just replaying and catching up to it. It's like, let's say you're doing something on live feed. It's going on live, but maybe the signal slows down and you glitch a little bit. So you're like 5 minutes time delay, but the interview's already going live. It's already happened, but you're just catching up to it. And how do we know this is true? Well, we know this because of physics and how the universe works. We know that everything, when the universe popped in, everything already made already. Now, here's something even more trippier than that. So you're both alive and dead, right? But guess what? This is one universe. They discovered multiple. So in another universe, there's a same carbon copy of you and me living. We're having this same exact interview. The only difference is the R on the back is a P. The M is smaller. There's every possible outcome exists. There's a universe where you already won the lottery, where you're rich, where you're poor. This is why I'm showing people that you can actually tap into these universes or these dimensions of yourself. And the way you tap into these versions of yourself is, first of all, the reason why you can tap in, I mean, you can't physically go there. We just don't have the technology. It's just it's infinite. The reason you can tap into those parts is because the consciousness is connected. You can go and retrieve information from that reality, use it in this current reality where you're at to influence your world. That is according to quantum theory or quantum science. Hopefully that makes a little better sense.
It does. It reminds me of this. There's this famous spiritualist, I can't think of his name, but he compared us to, if you take a tablecloth and if there's a wrinkle in a tablecloth, if you're the wrinkle in the tablecloth, just because that is what you are doesn't mean you're not connected to the rest of the tablecloth.
Good explanation. Exactly. That's what it's all about. And you got to remember too, is like, and another analogy is like, okay, let's say you have your two friends, right? Let's say let's say you're like 5 foot and your friend is like 6'4", and both of you guys are walking up to this plateau, right? Now, where the plateau ends, that's as far as you can see. Your friend who is taller than you is looking over and saying, man, look at all those new places. You're saying, bro, well, what you talking about? This is all I can see. That's the thing between the higher self and the mind. So the friend that's smaller would be your conscious mind. The friend that could see the entire plateau would be your higher self. So it says that there's another part, another reality that exists that you can't see. And that's an example to run it home.
I want to ask you about your book, How to Win the Lottery Using Quantum Physics. What can you tell me about this book? And where can people find it?
Right. So you can get the book through my website, and the book is also on Amazon. But the premise of the book basically sums up what we're talking about here, but in a little more detail. In the book, I actually give you the system, a structured system that I use to win the lottery that you can apply to yourself. I show you how the numbers work to collapse. But the book, it's more than lottery, but it's also lottery. It's just about life in general. The principles in that book you can use to create anything. But in the book, you'll actually see formats or routines and systems and mindsets of how to win the lottery. And the way I designed it too is more like a teaching book. It's like a study guide book. You'll definitely start winning more once you start studying the book and grasping the concepts and applying them. You'll notice your wins will start to go up.
Definitely gonna have to check that out. We will put a link to that. We'll put a link to that below. And I know we're running kind of short on time, so I'm not going to take up too much more of your time, but I do have a couple more questions. You know, I've been wanting to ask you, you were a chef, you've won the lottery more than once, and now, you know, various prizes, and now you have a YouTube channel that is doing very well. You know, as of the recording of this video, it's over, you know, around 80,000 subscribers, over 80,000. So how do you compare this success to a lottery win? Can it be compared? What are your thoughts on that?
You know, that's a great question. So remember when in the beginning, I said, I believe we have a purpose, right? And we have a destiny, right? And my story sums this up. So here's what happens. I went to school for culinary. That's what I thought I wanted to be. I had 5 years ago, I had no idea about how the universe works. Everything that I learned came through a download. I didn't read any books. People ask me, did you read like Neville Goddard book, I never read any books. The only thing that I studied upon and I was pretty convinced was just quantum science stuff. But all of this stuff came to me through downloads. So it was my purpose to do this stuff. I was just activated. The universe just turned me on and said, okay, it's time for you to go into your purpose. Here's the information you need. Go do it. And I won the lottery. So for me, winning the lottery was what the universe used for me to get out to teach people and help people to change their lives. That's what I believe. I just won the lottery because the universe said, all right, this is how you're going to teach people how to expand their mind and to do this stuff. But the point of all this is that you can do anything that you put your mind to and know how your mind works. All of this came to me in downloads. I remember one night I had this, it's like up to now I still remember it. And that's when I would just start to get information. I was just directed, go do this, read that, study, watch that. I didn't know what, I was a robot, man, but I was being led by my purpose. And then I just had an understanding.
So when you say downloads, when you were getting these downloads, are you talking about following your intuition, following your gut?
Following your higher self. So every person, right? Every person have a purpose. There's a time when the universe is going to choose you, when the universe is going to wake you up and say, all right, man, that job you're doing, that's not you. Here's your real purpose. And this is where people enter what they call spiritual awakening. They start to feel like the spiritual awakening is a process where you get lonely for a little bit. Your body changes, your mind changes. We talk about spiritual awakening like it's a good thing, but there's a dark side of spiritual awakening, the loneliness, the depression, the point that your mind now, you start to see what the real world is, called the matrix. You're unveiling and you're seeing like, oh man, Reality don't really work the way they say it works.
What is the best way that someone
Uh-huh.
can, in your opinion, win the
With the
lottery
lottery?
or achieve anything in their life?
Right.
Really? Yeah.
Okay. So here's the bottom line. And I thought about this over the years, and I said to myself, all right, Mark, what would be the biggest, because there's so much advice that you can give people, but for a beginner, and this is how I won the lottery, point blank. Everything else I did was a precursor to this, but here's what I did. I became very good at using my imagination by visualizing. If you can go to bed every night and see yourself, third person, first person, at the lottery office, checking your name, checking your ticket, doing what you do with the win. If you can see that over and over, you will win. Not only the lottery, but whatever you can visualize. Because as I said with my story, Timothy, the way I visualized winning was the exact way it played out. I'll give you an example how I visualize it. I would see myself driving my car, at the car wash, washing it. Then I'd jump to another scene. I'd see myself at the Publix. There's a Publix. I always go check my tickets. I'd see that Publix every night when I would slip. And I would see one ticket, and the machine would say top prize, claim at lottery. I already looked up online what it would look like when the machine won, so I had it in my head. And when I checked my tickets, I would feel good. And then months later, it played out exactly the same way. So for you guys, if you want to win a lottery or manifest anything, get good at visualizing. When you visualize something, the subconscious sees it as reality, doesn't know the difference. It gets impressed, and then the reality will change and you'll win. What will happen is you'll be able to be in the right place at the right time, the right store. You may even get a dream, a vision to go play. But if you want to win, visualize it, believe it, expect it, let it go. Don't be attached to it. And one of my secrets is don't check your tickets too often. Just let your tickets stack up. They're not going to expire. They take like 6 months. You're going to practice release and resistance. The more you do that, you're convincing your mind that you've already won. If you've already won, you have to experience it, right? That's the biggest secret I can tell anyone if they want to do this stuff.
That's so interesting. It's so interesting when there's so many people that do win that have believed that they were going to before it happened. And I know you've met, obviously you were one of them, and
yeah,
I was one of them, and I've met plenty of other people that has happened to as well. It's a really fascinating subject.
Gotta believe.
Yeah,
gotta believe.
Is there anything else that you wanted to say today, Mark? We're running kind of short on time, but is there anything that you want to say that I don't know enough to ask, or that you just wanted to say today?
Well, I want to piggyback on what you just said. There's a thing called belief and expectation. Belief is powerful, but expectation is even more powerful. So what I would encourage anyone to do is, why don't you start to expect what you want to come in? You can expect something without actually building a belief. Did you know that? Actually, when you expect something, you can go beyond a belief. And that's something we don't talk about much, and I think we get deep into that. But when you get into an expectancy state, it really helps you because you create a lot of less resistance. You're just like, all right, it's going to happen. You're not like pushing and pushing. And I noticed when you interview, I'm sure you can attest to that. When you interview all these individuals that won big money, they kind of like expected, right? Like they were going to win one day, right? They probably didn't believe it 100%, but they kind of expected something was going to happen because that's why they kept playing.
Yeah, most people that I've met they did expect it. So yeah.
Yeah. So practice that. When you expect something, you've already declared it already happened.
Yeah, it's a really, really interesting subject. I could talk about.
Yeah, we could go on for hours on this.
Yeah,
we haven't touched a lot of stuff yet.
Yeah, exactly.
More stuff we could talk.
Yeah. So where can people find your YouTube? We will put a link to all this below, but for anyone listening or watching that isn't familiar, where can people find your YouTube? Find you on YouTube, find your book, find everything. Like
Right. So you just YouTube Mark Haughton. You'll see me pop up lottery stuff. You can go to the Deliberate Creators channel. I also have a podcast channel. It's called Quantum Chosen One Podcast. I'm on TikTok too. Mark Haughton. So yeah, just Mark Haughton, you'll see me pop up.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Mark, for your time. I really, really appreciate it. It's a fascinating conversation as always, and would love to. I'm sure I'll talk to you.
Again.
Hopefully,
Yeah,
we'll have you back another time. But
two.
it's so interesting, and I love what you're doing on your podcast as well, interviewing other fascinating people, including some other lottery winners. So thank you very much.
Including you. You were on there too, so you got to send them a link to where that interview with you.
Absolutely.
Fascinating.
Yeah, we'll put that below. So yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, Mark. It's great to see you as always.
Thanks, Timothy.
All right. Take care. So that was my podcast interview with Mark Haughton. If you like this video, go ahead and hit the like button and let me know in the comments, what do you think of all this? What do you think of the power of the subconscious mind, the ego, metaphysics, and manifestation? What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments below. There are plenty of new podcast interviews coming soon. As always, thank you so much for watching, and thank you for your support.